I'm Megan, and this is Confessions of a Female Founder, a show where I chat with female entrepreneurs and friends about the sleepless nights, the lessons learned, and the it's just so great. This is why it's so nice. Hi, I'm Megan, and I play a mean game of Scrabble.
If you thought Meghan Markle's Netflix docuseries was awkward, get ready. Her podcast just shattered whatever goodwill she had left in Hollywood. Confessions of a Female Founder was meant to be her comeback, her big reinvention moment. Instead, it blew up into a full-blown PR nightmare, filled with tears, trauma baiting, and a brutal response from one of the industry's biggest heavyweights, Leonardo DiCaprio.
The hell did that happen?
I have no idea. We were talking about our first interview.
Yes, you heard that right. The king of environmental causes, who's notoriously selective about everything from scripts to sushi, has reportedly distanced himself from Meghan Markle, and he didn't do it quietly either. Industry insiders reveal that Leo called the podcast manipulative, brand-first feminism, and that's just the polite way to put it. But let's take a step back and rewind for a moment.
I chat with female entrepreneurs and friends.
When Meghan Markle launched her latest podcast under her new lifestyle brand, the announcement came wrapped like a carefully crafted gift. The branding was sleek and sophisticated, with soft filtered pastels and elegant graphics. The messaging was drenched in buzzwords, empowerment, vulnerability, authenticity. You'd think she was handing modern women a torch to guide them through boardrooms and breakups alike.
Hi. We're so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here.
First want to just say congratulations to you on everything that you've done and everything that you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But once you peel back the glossy packaging, you quickly realize the box is empty, or worse, filled with recycled self-help cliches and pseudo-feminist fluff. From the very first promo clip, it was obvious this wasn't a show about creating something new. It wasn't about building a platform or sparking meaningful conversations. It was about building brand Meghan, and not just any version. This was Meghan 3.0, the polished empath, the modern-day Oprah, but without Oprah's wisdom, legacy, or lasting impact. Imagine trying to wear a crown you haven't earned. It fits, but it wobbles. The debut episode set the tone, and unfortunately, it was a low one. The guest was Jamie Kern-Lima, cosmetics, mogul, best-selling author, and a true business success story with a rags-to-riches journey. Once a struggling waitress, she's now a millionaire founder of IT Cosmetics who overcame rejection, self-doubt, and a mountain of industry bias. Her story should have electrified the audience. Instead, what we got felt more like a dramatic TED Talk reading, mixed with a Pantene commercial.
And to prove something, to prove that you're enough, you have to prove that you're pretty enough, you have to prove that you're smart enough, you prove that you're a good wife or a good friend, and I was like, I am just so done with...
Rather than diving into Jamie's business strategies or the barriers she broke in the beauty industry, the conversation quickly turned into a tearful duet. Meghan, with the delicate precision of someone trying to cry on cue, steered the dialogue into a strangely self-centered place. She wasn't asking questions. She was mirroring emotions, echoing traumas, and subtly looping every story back to herself. At one point, Jamie spoke about rejection from male investors and the shame of not fitting the face of her brand. But instead of exploring the deeper layers of that experience, like systemic beauty standards or gender bias in venture capital, Meghan interrupted with her own story of crying in a boardroom. The conversation snowballed into a sentimental montage. Women crying in bathrooms, at desks, in their cars. Somewhere in the background, empowerment was supposedly happening. But to many listeners, it felt like they were being sold something, not a product, but a feeling. A highly produced, emotionally engineered version of empowerment, dipped in vanilla-scented vulnerability and gift-wrapped in inspirational cliches. It wasn't empowering. It was exhausting. Even the editing betrayed its true intention. Every beat was designed to trigger emotion. Gentle piano swells, long pauses, voice cracks. It felt less like a genuine conversation and more like a performance, crafted not for the audience, but for optics and brand image. One marketing analyst put it bluntly, It's not storytelling, it's sentimentality in service of self-promotion. Others noted how Meghan constantly positioned herself, not as the host, but as the co-hero in every guest's story. A supporting character? Never. Always subtly, the star. That's what critics are really reacting to. The podcast wasn't just emotionally heavy, it was narratively hollow. Jamie Kern-Lima's real achievements weren't a spotlight. They were a mirror for Meghan to reflect her carefully curated image back to the audience. It was trauma adjacent, empathy adjacent, empowerment adjacent, but not authentic, because here's the truth. Vulnerability works when it's rooted in honesty, not choreography. When it's raw, not edited to sound like a Hallmark card crossed with a Harvard Business Review article. On Meghan's podcast, vulnerability is a tool, a texture, a strategic brand choice designed to signal relatability while keeping total control of the narrative. We knew there would be buzz, but instead of inspiration, we got syrupy monologues about boardroom tears, hair loss ads, and the vague horrors of being underestimated by powerful men. Instead of insight, curated emotion. Instead of sisterhood, a one-woman campaign positioning Meghan as the misunderstood mogul in the making. The message was clear. Meghan Markle wasn't here to change the world. She was here to sell the idea she already had, and critics argue that's the real manipulation.
We had a feeling that it would have some buzz surrounding it.
If the content raised eyebrows, it was the aftermath that truly dropped jaws. Word started leaking that Leonardo DiCaprio, of all people, had distanced himself from the project, not with a dramatic press release or a pointed jab. Leo doesn't need to shout. His silence speaks fluent Hollywood. According to insiders, DiCaprio's team was blindsided when his name quietly appeared in early promotional materials connected to As Ever. A few media outlets even hinted at an upcoming conversation between him and Meghan, a segment that, by all accounts, never actually happened. Whether it was a miscommunication or a strategic name drop, the effect was the same. Leo's people moved quickly to shut it down. Calls were made, mentions pulled, and suddenly the vague implication that the Oscar-winning actor was endorsing Meghan's media pivot vanished, like a $300 scented candle left too close to a ring light. This wasn't just about Leo, it was about what he represented. Hollywood royalty, A-list credibility, a green light that Meghan's new venture was more than just another vanity podcast draped in floral branding and emotionally edited audio clips. His name alone could have drawn listeners who might otherwise skip the typical girl boss glow-up genre entirely. But Leo, whose brand is ruthlessly managed and usually tied to climate activism, not cozy chats about rejection and resilience, wasn't having it.
How did that happen?
I have no idea. We were talking about our first...
And that's when the quiet whispers started echoing louder in Hollywood boardrooms and media agencies. The message wasn't subtle. Meghan Markle's rebrand might be overreaching. Again. See, in this town, name-dropping isn't just bold. It's dangerous. Hollywood runs on access, yes, but it's also a delicate balance of trust. Use someone's name without permission, even vaguely, and you're signaling more than ambition. You're signaling desperation. And if there's one thing this industry despises more than inauthenticity, it's neediness disguised as relevance. Leo's subtle disengagement, his very absence, became its own powerful statement. For many watching from the sidelines, it crystallized the bigger issue. Meghan's pattern of preemptively tying herself to icons she hasn't truly collaborated with yet. Oprah, Serena, Beyoncé. Names frequently drop near Meghan's projects, not always with confirmed involvement, but with just enough ambiguity to blur the lines between association and alliance.
Just one more movie. One more movie.
DiCaprio's distancing wasn't just a behind-the-scenes hiccup, it sparked a social media firestorm. Speculation ran wild. Was Meghan exaggerating her connections? Using her proximity to power as a substitute for actual content? The term Hollywood grifting started trending. Not from tabloids, but from PR pros, cultural critics, and podcast producers familiar with A-list circles. Their critique wasn't personal, it was professional. What Meghan attempted wasn't a simple misstep. It was a strategic overreach. She didn't just want to launch a podcast. She wanted it to arrive wrapped in instant legitimacy. To do that, she leaned heavily on big names like DiCaprio to borrow cultural relevance she hadn't yet earned in this space. It's a classic PR move. Borrow status until you build your own. But in Meghan's case, it backfired. Instead of coming off as savvy, she was seen as presumptuous. Instead of crafting a narrative of authentic womanhood, she appeared to be orchestrating one built on borrowed prestige. What frustrated insiders most was how obvious the playbook had become. The podcast carried all the fingerprints of manufactured credibility, vague allusions to high-profile guests, timed leaks hinting at celebrity interest, and soft focus branding that felt more goop than grounded. But what it lacked, what Oprah, Leo, and Serena bring effortlessly, was substance. Because in Hollywood, substance isn't just about telling your story, it's about earning the right to tell others. Meghan's attempt to place herself in the interviewer's chair without the cultural or journalistic foundation to hold that space came off as entitlement wrapped in velvet. The DiCaprio fallout didn't sink the podcast, but it shifted the conversation. Suddenly, it wasn't just about the content, it was about credibility. And once credibility is questioned in this town, no amount of branding or borrowed prestige can fix it. Hollywood thrives on illusion, but it punishes those who can't control it. So when Leo stepped back, even without a word, it felt like the scaffolding around Meghan's carefully built media empire began to creak. Not collapse, yet, but definitely sway. Because if there's one thing Hollywood royalty understands, it's this. You don't show up to the coronation before you've earned the crown. Here's the problem. Meghan didn't start a conversation. She delivered a sermon, and not the inspiring kind. More like the kind that's been focus grouped, ghost-written, and curated to the edge of self-parody. From the moment she began confessing, it felt less like insight and more like an infomercial.